Hi everyone, welcome to the channel. My name is Nick Cosgrove and I am back with this week's No Filter Q&A. This is the episode where I answer all questions related to diet, training, and supplementation that I've received over the last 7 days from our in-house clients, online clients, as well as a few of our online followers. Remember, if you have any questions related to your nutritional plan, workout program, supplements you are currently taking, not taking, or considering taking, please feel free to email me those questions at nick@foreverfitperformance.com, or you can DM me your questions on my Instagram at fitcosgrove_. All right, let's get started with this week's no filter Q&A with question number one. Nick, what happens if you never train arms directly? So, if you're someone who goes to the gym and you just focus on the big muscle groups, the big lifts, the bench press, the deadlift, the squat, you're going to work your biceps and triceps indirectly. For any pressing movement like a bench press, you are working your triceps indirectly. They're what we call your synergist muscles. They're assisting with the push. For any back movement, such as the deadlifts, you're doing a pulling movement. Your biceps are going to act as a synergist muscle group in this particular exercise. So they're assisting with the pull. So even though you're not working them directly, you're working them indirectly. Okay. And a lot of power lifters do that, right? A lot of power lifters, they focus on the three big lifts. Olympic lifters, they focus on the clean and press, the clean and jerk. So, there's a lot of people that go to the gym that don't do specific exercises for smaller muscle groups. I think this is a mistake. Okay. Not just from an aesthetic point of view, but also from a functional point of view. Okay. Because if you're not practicing dumbbell curls, barbell curls, hammer curls, unilateral rope extensions, skull crushers, these are all exercises that, in my opinion, are fundamental for overall arm development. Okay. So it goes beyond just having nice looking arms. It goes for the function of your biceps and your triceps. My recommendation is to actually give arms their own day. So, like with my training program, I follow a 6-day training program where I give biceps and triceps their very own day to train and I superset them. Now, if you're someone who's in the gym 3 times a week, my recommendation then is to split up your muscle groups, right? So you're going to do chest and back on one day, shoulders, biceps, and triceps on another day, and then you have quadriceps, hamstrings, glutes, and calves on another day. I feel that this is the best way to train. If you're doing a 3-day split, you can obviously modify that if you're doing a 2-day split, 4-day split, or like me, 5, 6-day split. Okay. So it really depends on the person's workout program. But I do recommend that everyone do at least two, preferably at 3 exercises for your biceps and 3 or 4 exercises for your triceps. Especially guys, they tend to focus more when they do train arms, they tend to focus more on the actual biceps and not so much on the triceps, which again is a mistake because your triceps have 3 heads, your biceps have 2 heads. So if you want to have bigger arms or more defined arms, you want to give a lot of focus to your triceps. Okay. So what's going to happen if you don't train your arms? Well, you're going to have muscular imbalances. You might, if you're doing those 3 major lifts, you're going to have a strong back, you're going to have a strong chest, you're going to have strong legs. But the smaller muscle groups, such as your biceps, your triceps, your anterior deltoids, your medial deltoids, your posterior deltoids, your hamstrings, your calves, going into your gastrocnemius and soleus, there's going to be some muscular imbalances because those muscles are not being worked directly. So I'm a firm believer in working everything. Okay. You want to have a symmetrical physique. You want to have an aesthetically pleasing physique. But most importantly, want to have a functional physique. Okay. So you want to train every single muscle group. I recommend giving every single exercise, every single muscle group at least 2 or 3 exercises, even the small ones. Okay. You got 7 days in a week. You can easily figure out how to do that. It doesn't take much. Okay. But I would not advise people to neglect training their arms directly. I think that's a mistake. Okay. Nick, do bad genetics really exist, or are most people just training wrong? Um, well, I mean, there are people who have better genetics than others, right? I mean, we looked at Mr. Olympia that just happened this past weekend, and I was talking about this with one of my clients. I'm like, you look at all those guys on stage. I think there was 15 guys competing. They're all genetic freaks, right? And what separates first place from 15th place? Yes, a lot of it is some train harder than others, some diet harder than others, some are on more drugs than others, but the top 5 are usually genetic elite. So they're the genetic elite of the genetic freaks. Okay. So your average person is not a genetic freak. Your average person is not going to start lifting weights and then within 3 months put on all kinds of muscle and lose all kinds of body fat. But there are some people out there that do. You see it in professional sports too. And I use Michael Jordan as an example. Yes, hard work, talent, but also genetics. Genetics play a huge role when it comes to professional athletes. So same thing with bodybuilding. So same thing when it comes to transforming your physique. Some people put on muscle faster than others, right? Some people lose fat faster than others. It's just the genetics that you were given. Okay. So I always tell people don't work against your genetics, work with your genetics, work with what you have. So if you know that naturally you have a slower metabolism and you put on body fat very easily, you might want to follow a lower carbohydrate, higher fat diet. You might want to implement a training strategy where you're doing more circuit training, more supersets, more drop sets. So you're exerting more energy, so you're burning more body fat while building more muscle. If you're someone that we call a hard gainer or an ectomorph, which is someone who's naturally very lean, you've been skinny your whole life, you have a really hard time putting on weight, there's a good chance that for your type of training program, you're going to want to do a basic straight set program. You're going to lift as heavy as possible, keep your reps between maybe 10 to 12 reps, still, minimal rest periods, still train with the utmost amount of intensity, but you want to make sure that you're executing the exercises correctly with heavy, heavy weight. Okay. As far as the diet for an ectomorph, you got to eat a lot of food. Okay. There's no way around it. I worked with lots of people who are ectomorphs, and these are people who struggle to put on every ounce of muscle, and they have to eat around the clock. So if you're truly, dedicated to this and you want to put on weight, good weight, and you are someone that struggles to put weight on the scale, you're going to have to eat. You're going to have to lift heavy. If you're someone who puts on weight fairly easy, you don't have to eat as much, and you probably don't have to lift as much. But then you have to be very careful because you also most likely put on body fat more easily. Okay. So to answer that question, yeah, there are people with better genetics than others, of course. Okay. That's just luck of the draw. It is what it is. Life isn't fair. Okay. But learn to work with your genetics. As far as most people training incorrectly, I wouldn't say that most people train incorrectly, but what I do see with a lot of people that do work out is first, they lack consistency, right? I see this a lot, even at my gym. I see people, they'll come for 2 or 3 days and then you don't see them for 2 or 3 months. All right. Well, that's not going to do anything. Okay. And then they don't have a plan. So they go in and they just kind of take what's available. And the workout doesn't make any sense. So your workout has to make sense. Are they doing the exercises correctly? Not really. But I mean, for the most part, I mean, a bench press is up and down, a squat is up and down. So you can learn how to do these exercises correctly, but how you implement them into your workout, how you practice proper sequence order, this all comes into how strategic you are with putting on the muscle while stripping away the body fat. So structuring a program, a training program in the gym has to make sense. Okay, so you can't just wing it. But I feel like anyone can learn how to do exercises correctly, whether it's with a trainer or whether you're watching a few YouTube videos. You can learn how to do things somewhat correctly watching YouTube videos, preferably if a trainer, but who can, critique your form and give you some pointers because when you're just doing the exercises yourself, you can't really see your form, right? So it's really hard to critique yourself. But for most people, if they're truly dedicated to, again, wanting to transform their physique and improve their health, they'll learn how to do the exercises. But how they implement these exercises throughout their training program and how intense they train, which means no cell phones, and how consistent they train, those are the things that I see a lot of people missing, which, in my opinion, is why a lot of people don't get the results that they think they're going to achieve. It has nothing to do with their genetics. Okay. Nick, why is it considered wasting your time doing cardio to lose fat? I've heard both you and my friend who lifts regularly say this before. Well, I've actually never said that doing cardio is a waste of time, okay? Whether it's to lose fat or improve your overall heart health, okay? I actually think cardio is very important. It's important for your cardiovascular endurance, okay? Your cardiovascular respiratory system. So I never tell people not to do cardio. What I tell people is do not rely on cardio to burn body fat. This is a mistake because if you rely on cardio to burn body fat, you're always going to have to rely on cardio to burn body fat. Whereas if you utilize weight training to burn body fat, you're not going to always have to do weight training. You could take 2 or 3 weeks off from the gym from lifting weights and you're not going to put on fat. But if your body's constantly relying on cardio to burn fat and you miss 2 or 3 days of going for a run, there's a good chance that you're going to start to accumulate body fat. So it's a mistake. So again, you want to build muscle because I know I say this almost on a weekly basis. The more muscle you have, the more calories you burn in a rested state. So this is probably the same thing your friend's been saying to you, is that it's smarter to focus more on the weights than the cardio if your ultimate goal is to not just lose body fat, but keep body fat off. Okay. But not once did I ever say doing cardio is a waste of time. Not once did I ever tell people not to do cardio. I myself do cardio every day. I talk about my walk to and from the gym, which is a good 15, 20-minute walk, and I do it at a speed walk pace. So I am getting my heart rate up. And that's enough for me, honestly. My resting heart rate's 38 beats per minute. So, which is very good, right? So the lower your heart rate is, the lower your resting heart rate is, the better, because that means the less work your heart has to do. Okay. So don't neglect cardio, but don't rely on it to burn body fat. That, in my opinion, is a huge mistake and one that will backfire on you in the long term. Okay. Nick, can you build muscle with only resistance bands? No. Next question. Um, honestly, no, you can't. I mean, you can improve mobility and flexibility, but anyone that sits there and says, "Oh yeah, you can do a band workout, a home workout," I'm like, listen, no, you need weights. Are you going to get some form of mobility and flexibility by doing resistance bands? Absolutely, of course, because it takes you into planes and ranges of motion, but you're not really using real resistance. Okay, so no, that's garbage. I'm not saying don't use bands. I think resistant bands have their place, but as far as building muscle, no. As far as improving flexibility and mobility, I think they're great. Okay. But don't fall for all these gimmicks and say, yeah, buy bands and do these home workouts with them and you'll get great results. Not going to happen. All right. Okay. Nick, why do some people gain muscle so fast while others struggle? Well, so this kind of correlates with that previous question I had with regards to genetics. It all comes down to your genetic potential. We have different body types. So we have what we call endomorphs. Endomorphs are people who put on weight very easily. Now, that weight could come in the form of muscle, fat, or a combination of the two. And then we have ectomorphs. Ectomorphs are people who struggle to put on weight and lose weight very easily. So these are the people that you see who are always since day one, since they were like teenagers, always very lean. So they struggle to put on weight. And for endomorphs, they always think, wow, I'd love to have that. But it's actually a problem for a lot of people who are ectomorphs because it's really hard for them just to put on muscle because their metabolism is so fast. And then you have mesomorphs, which is kind of a combination of the two, and the genetic elite that everyone hates. These are the people that can put on muscle fast and lose body fat fast. So that's why I call them the genetic elite. Now, really, realistically speaking, that's probably about 10% of the population. Most people, we're talking about the average person, that most people out there fall into either ectomorph or endomorph. Okay. So once you understand what body type you are, you can diet accordingly and train accordingly. Okay. That's very important because, in my opinion, an ectomorph and endomorph should not eat the exact same. And an endomorph and an ectomorph should not train the exact same way either. So once you understand your body type, once you get to learn your genetics more, you start to work with your genetics, as I said previously, this goes a long way as opposed to working against them. Okay. So work with what you got, work with the tools that you've been given, and you should be able to take your body to the next level. Okay. But don't try to work against your genetics. That's not going to work. Okay. So learn your body, learn what your body responds to. And then sometimes that is going to be trial and error. And even for me as a coach, I work with people and, the first time I'm working with someone, especially online, I'll say, I don't know your body type yet. And it's going to take me a good maybe 3 to 6 weeks to learn your body and learn how I need to diet you down if your goal is to lose body fat and how to train you properly in the gym, how to put together a program for you. Okay. But there is a trial and error process. But once we figure out that formula, we stick with it. Okay. So that's what I tell everyone, whether you're working on your own or with a coach, once you find a formula that's working for you, stick with it. Don't just start changing things up to change things up. Okay. Because I promise you that a lot of people out there are following formulas they follow find online, and it's just generic garbage. Okay. So you got to follow a program that's customized specifically for you, your goals, your genetics, your lifestyle. And that goes for both in the gym and in the kitchen. Okay. Okay, Nick, do you think body transformations are always mean better health? No. No, there's a lot of body transformations out there that I think sometimes the people, even though they may look better internally, they could be suffering. And that could be whether it be with their organs, whether with their heart, whether with their kidneys, whether with their liver, or mentally. Okay. So you see a lot of those transformation pictures, and he's like, well, okay, but what did they have to do to get from point A to point B? Because for, let's say, a man to get down from 18% body fat down to 3% body fat, if that man did that by taking clenbuterol and cytomel, which are fat burners, and that man did that by starving himself and eating 1,500 calories a day, and that man did that by doing 2 hours of cardio a day, I'm going to tell you right now, that person, even though they might look better in photos, they're struggling internally. And whether that put too much stress, like I said, on their organs, on their kidneys, on their liver, their heart, or mentally. Okay. So maybe they've developed an unhealthy relationship with food now, or they become obsessed with doing cardio now. Okay. So a lot of times these transformation photos, even though they look great, they don't tell the whole story. I'd rather see that same man go from 18% body fat down to maybe 8% body fat, which in my opinion is a more healthy body fat than 3%. Because let's face it, 3% is not healthy. It's not something that you can maintain and sustain for the remainder of your life. Okay. So 8%, in my opinion, that's a good body fat level for men. Okay. I think that's a really good body fat, single digits. It's good, it's healthy, and it's easy to maintain if you know how to eat properly and you know how to train effectively. Okay. But if that man was able to take himself from 18% down to 8% by doing 30, maybe 45 minutes of cardio, no fat burners, and still eating food, nutritious food, while feeling full and lots of energy. They might not look as good in a photo, but to me, that's a better transformation. Okay. Because another thing you see with a lot of these transformation photos, and I've seen this time and time again, especially of people who competed. So they lose all this weight. They look amazing on stage. And those same people, 6 months from the time they step off stage, you see a photo of them, which rarely you'll see, but they don't look as good because now what's happened is they've burned out, whether it's physically, mentally, or a combination of the two. And I've seen this time and time again. Okay, because they tried to accomplish something that realistically, in this case, this amazing physique that is not sustainable, and they went about it in kind of like a crash course way. So that's why I always tell people, whether I'm working with them for a competition or I'm training someone right now for a wedding, I'm like, look, we can get you down to where you need to be, but we're going to take a little bit more time because I want to do this in the most healthiest way possible. I don't want to just get you down to 3% body fat so you can win your $5 trophy, and then you're going to have all these health problems afterwards, and you're going to have all these psychological problems afterwards, and you're going to have an unhealthy relationship with food. So you're going to be obsessed with cardio, right? You're not going to be sleeping. Your thyroid's going to be all screwed up. Your metabolism is going to be all messed up. So this is not a good strategy to implement if your goal is to lose body fat and build muscle long term. Okay. And so I'd strongly advise anyone who is trying to do a body transformation to hire a reputable, knowledgeable, and experienced coach that can guide you. Okay, try to get one that's been referred to you from your friends or family members, someone that you trust, someone that comes with tons of testimonials, maybe Google reviews. This all helps, okay, because you'll know that person is a professional and that person is making sure that your health always comes first and doesn't just care about getting you from point A to point B, and who cares what the ramifications are after that. All right. Okay. Nick, how do you stay motivated when your physique isn't changing? Okay. So I've actually had this question a few times in the past, and it's a good question. So one thing that I tell clients to do is to set realistic goals, but also to have different goals. So what I mean by that is it's good to have a goal and say, hey, you know what? I want to, if you're a guy and you want to get your waist down from 38 down to 32. Okay, that's a good goal to have. Okay, that's a physical goal though. You also want to have another goal, which is more for your lifestyle. Okay, so it could be like, you know, I really struggle getting upstairs. My knees always hurt getting upstairs, and I'm only like 35, 40. But that's unacceptable. So your goal should be, hey, you know what? I want to make sure that I can walk upstairs and be pain free, or I want to get out of bed and have no lower back pain. Okay. Or I want to be able to just keep up with my kids and go for a run with my kids and play soccer with my kids. So it's always good to have realistic goals, but also to have different goals that go beyond aesthetics. Because there's going to come a time, I can tell you right now, from someone who's been training for 20 plus years, where you're not seeing changes with your physique anymore. Okay. So you can't keep chasing that because what happens a lot of times with those type of people, they start going down this very dark road and they start, maybe going down experimenting with anabolic steroids, not knowing what they're doing, and they end up hurting themselves. Okay. So the goal has to go beyond aesthetics. And I always tell every single person I work with, I'm like, look, because most people that come to work with me, that most people that come to work with me, I'd say pretty much everyone that comes to work with me, they want to lose fat and build muscle. They do. And that's fine. And I always tell people, if vanity gets you into the gym, great. But you need something that's going to keep you in the gym long term. And there's going to come a time where you stop seeing changes. The scale's not going to move. You're not going to be able to bench press any more weight. That's going to happen. You're going to hit plateaus. And what are you going to do when you hit those plateaus? Because if you're constantly just looking in the mirror and saying, "Oh, my physique's not changing, my weights aren't going up, I feel like crap, like I'm demotivated." You start skipping workouts, you start cheating on your diet, and all of a sudden you just stop everything. And that's happened to a lot of people. So for me, what I usually do is I'll look and say, okay, the gym is more for me these days, it's more of a mental break for me. I use it for like mental therapy. Okay. So it helps de-stress me, calms me down, keeps me grounded, makes me more productive in my business, allows me to sleep better. Okay. Puts me in a better mood for my relationship. So that's where my workouts are beneficial for me. It's no longer about, oh, can I build 23-inch arms? Can I build a bigger chest? I don't want to do that anymore. I just want to maintain the physique I have. And at 40 years old, I feel really good. So if I can maintain that going into my 50s, my 60s, and so on, the job is done. Okay. But I always want to keep that goal in the back of my mind saying, okay, well, that's my long-term goal. So it's important to have those aesthetics as a goal for sure. Who doesn't want to look good, feel good? Of course, I get that. But it can't be your only goal. Okay. So figure out another why as to why you're going to the gym, why you're eating cleanly. And it could be something so simple as I want to be able to keep up with my kids, or I want to be able to walk up a flight of stairs, pain free, no knee pain, no hip pain. I want to get out of bed and have no lower back pain. Okay. I want my blood pressure to be normal. You know what I mean? So all these things are go beyond what you look like. And if you have those goals in mind, you'll never give up and you'll never take your foot off the gas. Because the people that take their foot off the gas, that's when things go on a downward spiral very fast. All right. Okay. Two more questions here. Nick, can you still build muscle while working a 9 to 5 job and raising a family? I don't see why not. It just comes down to time management. And, I've had people say this to me before. I'm like, how do your clients do it? I'm like, I've got 2 kids and I got to get them up for breakfast. I got to get them up to school. And I'm like, time management. If you have a partner, I mean, you guys could be splitting the duties. And if you're both working, you can hire a nanny. I have a lot of clients, I talked about this in the past, who have a sitter or a nanny that assists them. And people go, well, I'm not that rich. I'm like, well, hold on a second. If you really focus on what you're prioritizing here, if you're putting your health and fitness first, I'm sure you can budget to have a nanny or have a sitter. I'm not saying have someone work 8 hours a day. I'm having someone maybe drop off the kids at school, someone to come in to cook some lunches, whatever it may be. Okay. Or you and your partner split the duties, but it can be done. I mean, we have a lot of clients on our roster who work, never mind 9 to 5. I've got clients on my roster who they start work at 6 in the morning and they work till like 6 at night and they still fit in going to the gym 5, 6 times a week. It can be done. It just comes down to time management. Because a lot of times, when people tell me this, I don't have the time. I look at their schedule and I'm looking like like, okay, well, you work 9 to 5. I mean, that's 8 hours of a 24-hour day, right? There's still 16 hours left in that day. So, okay, you're going to sleep for 7 to 8. So now we're down to 8 hours, maybe 9 hours left in your day, right? Okay, you got chores, you got activities. I get it, but that's can't be 9 hours. My workouts are 45 minutes, right? So you don't need to commit 3 hours to the gym every day. I'm not even saying to do that. 45 minutes in and out. Find a gym that's maybe 15 minutes away from your home or set up a home gym. Okay. Do that if you have the space. So there are ways. It just comes down to time management. Okay. And for people, and I don't like to comment on this because that's a pretty common excuse. I don't have time. And when people say that to me, I kind of just roll my eyes. I'm like, okay, sure. You don't have time. You must be the busiest person on this planet to not have time to fit in a 45-minute workout. So replace with I don't have time is I don't want to make the time because that's the reality. You don't want to make the time. but it can be done. And I think it helps when you see other people who are in your situation doing it. Because for me, I don't have kids. So, it's easy for me to sit here and say, make the time. But I train people who have kids and they make the time. So the more people that you surround yourself with who have similar lifestyles to you, and you see that they are working out, they are eating clean, I think that that rubs off on you, right? Because you do become a product of your environment. So start socializing, start hanging out with like-minded people, and you yourself will develop those good habits. All right. Last question today. Nick, do you believe that everyone needs a coach, or can most people figure out how to build muscle on their own? Um, so it's that difficult question for me to answer because, of course, I'm going to say, yeah, you should have a coach. In fact, you should hire me as your coach. But, the reality is that I believe that most people work better with a coach. I truly do. Okay, taking me out of the equation, it's just that if you work with someone who's a professional, someone who's experienced, someone who's knowledgeable and understands anatomy, physiology, and nutrition, they can fast track your results for you. Okay. And that's why I'm not someone who sits here. I talked about this last week. I'm not going to guarantee you results in 30 days. But what I can promise you is that as a coach, I'm going to give you my undivided attention when I'm working with you, whether it be in-house or online. And your goal has become my goal. Okay. So it's not about the money. It's more about, for me, it's more about my reputation and giving a good service to you, the client. Okay. And I feel like there's a lot of good coaches out there that feel the same. And so if you're working with someone who is a professional and can help guide you, yes, I do think it's incredibly beneficial because I would say that most people, when I watch them train, whether they're even if they're doing the exercises correctly, as I mentioned in one of the previous questions, their sequence is out of tack. They're not coming in with a plan. And as someone who has been working out for over 20 years, I can see this right away. Okay, and I know this. I always have a plan for every single person I work with, even if it's a group class. I know what exercises I'm putting in which order. I know which muscle group we're working. I know if I need to have an alternative exercise because someone's has a physical limitation or injury, or maybe the piece of equipment I want is in use. I know exactly what I'm going to do instead. Okay, so if a squat rack is in use and I want to do squats of a client, I'm not like, well, we're going to do I don't know, we're gonna do lat pull down instead. I'm like, I would no, I wanted to do legs. I'm not gonna do back. So I'll find an alternative. Okay, let's do some walking lunges. Let's do some ball wall squats. Let's do some hack squats. Let's do some leg press. So we're still working the quadriceps, still working the hamstrings, still working the glutes. And I feel a lot of people don't do that because they don't understand anatomy and physiology. So in my experience, it's a mistake to go at this blindly if you don't know. I compare it to the same thing as if I have a broken toilet, I'm not going to fix it myself. I'm not a plumber. Okay. If I have something going on with my electricity, I'm not going to try to go in there and work on my circuit box. I'm going to hire an electrician. So the same thing with your body. If you want to build a better physique and you want to become more healthy and fit, it's going to be of great benefit to you to hire someone who is a professional in this field. Okay. Now, that doesn't mean you have to stick with this person for the remainder of your life. I mean, a lot of people do. I've had clients with me for 20 plus years now, but I've also had clients who have worked with me for a year and then they've left and they've come back. I've also had people that have worked with me and have never come back. That's happened. Rarely though, but I have had that happen. And, every single one of them I mean, in my opinion, has received benefits from working with me. They've learned something. So they've learned about their body. They learn how to structure a program. They know how to eat correctly. So by working with a coach, it really goes far beyond just the accountability, right? You can learn something, especially if that coach is someone who is reputable, is knowledgeable, and is educated and understands anatomy and physiology and how the human body works. It can help guide you so you're not constantly hitting plateaus and you're not constantly figuring out, oh, what am I doing wrong here and trying to troubleshoot yourself. Okay. So I'm a firm believer in working with professionals in any category to help fast track your results. I've done it for years. I talked about even when I got my place, there was a lot of stuff, not a lot of stuff, but there were things that needed to be fixed. There were things that needed to be hung. There were things that needed to be put together. I'm not that handy. I have a handyman. Okay. People say, well, that's a waste of money. I'm like, is it though? Because how much is your time worth? It's going to cost me a lot more to spend time trying to put all this together myself when I could be building my business and I could be paying someone else to do that? So same thing for a coach. How much is your time worth? How much time are you going to spend in the gym wasting your time doing exercises incorrectly, putting it in the wrong sequence order, eating incorrectly, and after a year you still look the exact same, right? Where if you had worked with a professional, like, oh wow, okay, now I'm training correctly and now I'm dieting correctly and now I'm seeing results. So that's the way I look at it. Does everyone need a coach? Of course not. Do most people need a coach? In my opinion, yes. Anyway, that's it for this week's No Filter Q&A. This episode will be going up on Monday, October the 20th. As a reminder, if you have any questions related to your diet, training, or supplementation, please feel free to email me those questions at nick@foreverfitperformance.com, or you can DM me your questions on my Instagram at @fitcosgrove_. Thank you all for watching. Thank you for supporting my YouTube channel, my online coaching business, as well as my in-house personal training business here in Vancouver, British Columbia. I truly do appreciate all the support and all the feedback that I receive from each and every single one of you. Thank you all again, and I will see you all next week. Bye for now.